Buckeyes and Wolverines fans none too happy? A Big Ten win in Pac-12 territory? And a new star emerges at running back in the Big Ten. It truly was a wacky, wacky week too, and we're here to break it all down for you on this edition of the B1G Rewind Show. Welcome into the B1G Rewind Show here on Talking 10 TV. By now, you should know who I am. It's Andy Coppens, publisher of Talking10.com, with you each and every week, breaking down the weekend that was in Big Ten football. You can follow me on Twitter at AndyOnFootball, which you can probably see right down there. Now, what do we do here on the show? Well, from big wins to bad losses, from amazing players to lessons learned, we give you everything you need to know from the weekend that was in Big Ten football. But before we get into all of that here this week, well, let us take some time to wish our friends, families, and all of those affected by the recent hurricanes, both Harvey and Irma. We wish you guys well. Hopefully, none of you have had to deal with loss of life. Most of you, it sounds like, especially in the case of Irma, dealt with a lot of wind, a lot of rain, but nothing too major considering all of the doomsday stuff that was out there on the news. Now, hopefully, we can provide a little relief and a little bit of lightening of the mood, if you will, because we're talking sports and we're talking Big Ten football here on the B1G Rewind Show. All right, folks, we got to lead off with the biggest win of the week, as we do each and every week on the show. And this week, there were a lot of candidates here because there were some big-time moments for the Big Ten over this past weekend. While everyone wants to draw on the negative that was Ohio State's loss, we'll have more on that later in the show for sure. There were some positive victories around the conference as well. So let's take a little bit of the spotlight away from Ohio State and talk about the rest of the conference, shall we? Now, there are some big-time candidates for this award of biggest win of the week. You can make a strong argument for Minnesota going into Pac-12 territory and blowing the doors off of Oregon State. You could even say Purdue taking a team behind the woodshed was also worthy of this. And there were a number of other wins that were candidates as well, but none of them are as big of a win as what Illinois, yes, Illinois, Illinois, folks, the Illini get the biggest win of the week. After a week of being blasted in the media and us doing our fair share of it, and rightfully so, for a mediocre at best win over Ball State last weekend, they were a 7-point underdog at home to a solid Western Kentucky program and solidly beat Western Kentucky in Champaign. That's good news as far as I'm concerned. The defense was the biggest winner of all this week. I mean, they allowed just one touchdown, held the Hilltoppers to just 6 rushing yards, and didn't allow a passing touchdown against a pass-happy offense. And those are some impressive numbers against any Big Ten team and any FBS opponent, let alone when you laid an egg defensively like the Illini did in Week 1. There's no need to overreact to this win, though, and just as there was no reason to overreact to the narrow win last week. The fact remains, the Illini are 2-0 despite some questionable play offensively. At least the U of I showed heart, passion, and a willingness to grow in Week 2. And those are good answers to the questions we asked after Week 1. And most importantly, Lovie Smith got his team to respond for a change. That is a nice building block. Let's see where this can take the Illini going forward. From greatness to piss-poor performance, it's the worst loss of the week, and congratulations are in order to Rutgers, because they're the 1-1-58. That's right, folks. Rutgers broke the streak. Eastern Michigan came into the game 0-58 against the Big Ten, and after last week's really good performance in a loss against Washington, Rutgers seemed like the team that was destined to not break that streak. But alas, they did in a 16-13 loss to the visiting Eagles. And bad news bears all the way around, because it appears that the new look Rutgers offense is the same old piss poor Rutgers offense we saw last year. I'm sorry, but a Big Ten team should be able to win any game against a MAC opponent when it doesn't give up more than 20 points. And that didn't happen this time around. Now, perhaps most troubling is the fact that Rutgers themselves in this game, on the final drive no less. Only the Scarlet Knights, in my book, could find a way to go into game-tying or game-winning field position and still come away with a loss. So this is exactly how it all went down, folks, and tell me if I'm crazy. After getting a first down on a 2-yard pass to Janorian Grant, putting them across midfield, Rutgers picked up a free 15 yards on a roughing the passer penalty down to the EMU 27-yard line with 59 seconds left on the clock. What happens next? Naturally, another 2-yard pass to Grant, who couldn't then get out of bounds, forced Kyle Bolin to spike the ball on second down, and now it's third down. Bolin's third down pass goes incomplete, and Rutgers, believe it or not, is called for illegal use of the hands, and it backs them up to the Eastern Michigan 40-yard line with just 18 seconds left to play. Okay, 18 seconds, third down, get yourself back into field goal range. All that happened, Bolin takes a sack on the ensuing play with no timeouts remaining, mind you, and no chance to save the game. All I've got to say here is this.
You cannot be serious!
Yes, I am serious. That happened. And on a different but also equally serious note, we want to send our prayers out to Jerry Kill and his family as he suffered what doctors are calling a minor seizure on the sidelines after being hit on Saturday during the game. Hopefully it is just minor, because I don't like to hear or see anybody going through what Jerry Kill is going through. Obviously his epilepsy has been an issue in the past, and you hope that this is just something because of that hit and nothing more serious than that. And on an equally serious note, I personally think it's time that we start asking if Chris Ash was the right hire for Rutgers. And while there are strides being made, and it is Rutgers, so what are your realistic expectations? You have to wonder when you take a look at the first-year hires in both PJ Fleck at Minnesota and Jeff Brom at Purdue, and then you take a look at what's going on with DJ Durkin at Maryland, and to a lesser extent, Lovie Smith in Illinois. And then you have to wonder if, realistically, if Chris Ash and the Rutgers program are being left in the dust and in the wake of those programs. It sure seems that way early on. And do you pull the plug this quickly on a hire? I don't think so. I think if you're Rutgers, you've got to have a lot more patience. But the early results really make you think that in terms of the teams that have had major turnarounds and major turnover in their programs, Rutgers is far down the pecking order. Now, if we're talking about disappointments, we might as well go into our most disappointing win of the week. And it's a tough one because there weren't a lot of things to be disappointed from in winning efforts this week. Some may suggest a stop in Ann Arbor is in order, and that's exactly where we're going, only to skip over to East Lansing, actually. We'll have more to say on the Michigan win over Cincinnati in a little bit, but for me, the performance of the Michigan State Spartans told the tale of a team that may not be very good once again this season. And yes, I get it. Western Michigan isn't a pushover, and yes, the Spartans looked better than the USC Trojans did in week 1 against the Broncos. But there's still just something a bit off about this MSU squad. Brian Lewerke just 161 yards, completed just 13 of 21 passes on the day, and he was nearly the team's leading rusher once again this week. That's not good news for a supposed three-headed monster at running back. And while the Spartans' defense played its normal pre-16 self, the Spartans' offense looked a lot like the 2016 version, and that's a problem as we go into week 3. For me, I'm keeping an eye on the Spartans because I'm not sure that this is a team that's fully back, even to a respectable, 6-6, 7-5, 8-4 level. Just not sold that there are answers offensively, and while the answers are definitely there defensively, it's still a major, major problem. So we'll see about this team heading forward. And for me, I'm disappointed in the fact that we didn't see progress from the offense in week 2. Awards to the side, front and center, it's takeaway time here on the B1G Rewind Show. So 4 big takeaways this week for me. The first up, DTN, don't trust Northwestern. No, seriously, don't do it. I made the mistake of thinking that Northwestern could hang with Duke and even win this game on the road. Instead, nothing got fixed along the offensive line, and that was all she wrote for Northwestern in Durham. It's not a good sign when you see the same issues, mainly that offensive line, arise week to week and nothing get fixed. Instead of showing they were over a narrow win to Nevada, they got blown out by a good opponent on the road. That's not an impressive sign of progress. The Wildcats have got to fix the offensive issues, or it won't matter how good that defense really is, because they're going to be on the field way too much, and any defense is going to get exposed at that point in time. So my advice to you, don't trust anything you think about Northwestern going forward. Takeaway number 2, Purdue has the right head coach in place for sure. As I said in the article following Purdue's butt-kicking of Ohio, sometimes you just know when you know, whether it's the house that you want to buy, the girl that you love, or the car that you want to buy. In this case, for Purdue, the shiny new toy of Jeff Brom as head coach is exactly the right fit. I'm pretty certain that Jeff Brom is putting the Boilermakers program on the right track to Successville. Of course, there's going to be stops for service along the way, no doubt about it, but you can tell that there's a big difference in the attitude, the confidence, and most importantly, the results for this team. I mean, this is a team that gave Louisville a game last week, and then Louisville went out on the road to North Carolina and put a whooping on the Tar Heels. So I'm pretty sure that Purdue is a much improved program. And they're getting solid offensive play from new faces and even some old ones. David Blau. And their defense is opportunistic. If anything, the performance of Purdue in the first 2 weeks of the season showcases just how much a coach really matters to a program in a day and age where a lot of people are just assuming that it's really players and not so much coaches anymore. It could be worse than what is happening in West Lafayette, that's for sure. All you need to do is put on a tape of Rutgers to find that information out. So, my second takeaway, obviously Purdue on the right track. We'll see if they can do it in Big Ten play like they have been doing it in the first 2 weeks of the season, but night and day difference in attitude and results, and you have to really like that if you're a Purdue Boilermakers fan. Takeaway number 3, not 2, but 3 this week for me is, settle down, Michigan fan. No, I mean, seriously, you guys are 2-0. That's right, I said it. 2-0 on the season. But you wouldn't know it if you read the interwebs, were on Twitter, listen to sports talk radio, or sadly listening to the boos that were raining down inside Michigan Stadium this past weekend. No, I'm not kidding you. There were actual boos this weekend inside Michigan Stadium. can you folks honestly, this is an honest request, chill the hell out with your sense of entitlement? I mean, your team has literally won dick the past decade. And one bad offensive showing to the 2017 season and the boos rain down? Absolutely pathetic, short-sighted, and ridiculous if you ask me. We get it. Wilton Spate sucks, right? But aren't you the same fan base that said he was going to be the second coming just a few short weeks ago? I'm confused. Which is it? Figure that out, and please, please get over your bad selves with the booing of this team. I mean, you guys even went after some players on Twitter, and then that caused probably my favorite moment of the week, and that's this right here. Yes, that's Grant Newsom putting Michigan fan in his place. That's right. So I agree with Grant Newsom. Stop using the our team around the water coolers on Monday and then the your team on Saturday when things go wrong. Either you're in it together as a team and a fan base or you're not. You can't have it both ways, folks. I'm sorry, but the hypocrisy of Michigan fan needs to be called out. Please just chill out on the booing of your team. You're 2-0 on the season. There's still 10 games left to go. And are you still going to boo the team if they win every game 34-16? Just asking. As for number 4 on my takeaways list, I told you not to buy into the hype machine. No, seriously, I told you not to buy into that hype machine for Ohio State. I literally said all offseason, I don't get how Ohio State is ranked number 2 in the polls. I also have been a large proponent of not giving two flying craps about preseason polls to begin with. But Ohio State in the preseason poll and Ohio State in Week 2's performance are the exact examples of why you shouldn't be buying into preseason polls. Look, I get it. One loss into the season, and especially to Oklahoma, isn't the end of the world. And there are plenty of opportunities ahead for the Buckeyes. Penn State, Michigan, maybe even a potential Big Ten title game. But here's the deal. Saturday proved my whole point this offseason. There are major issues for this team that even a great defensive line and a fifth-year quarterback can't fix. And arguably, they were part of the problem against the Sooners in Week 2. Sometimes I've felt like the only one in the corner screaming about the holes in OSU's lineup this offseason. And all of those holes were exposed against Oklahoma. Losing at home at night shouldn't happen, at least on paper, at any point in time if you're the Buckeyes. Inexperienced secondary was a major question for me, and they were exposed in Week 1 and exposed to even greater lengths in Week 2. The young run game couldn't get going, and there are major issues with this pass game. Not even Kevin Wilson's insertion into the coaching equation have been able to fix that. JT Barrett is just flat out not a good passing quarterback, and it is really starting to show. I mean, we've talked about in the offseason, he has literally regressed his passing percentage each and every year, and that's still the case in year 4 of him as the starting quarterback. It is just 2 weeks, I get it, but this Ohio State team isn't the one that can overcome major differences and major deficiencies in all of those areas and expect to win a national championship. And that's the expectation of the fan base and the program each and every year. Let's just say they certainly didn't look like a team capable of winning a Big Ten title either. And unless there's major growth, there could be major trouble in Cebus. Okay, folks, I know I said there were only going to be 4 takeaways, but hey, guess what? Hey, we've got an extra one for you. And that's the fact that, guess what, folks? J.K. Dobbins isn't the only star running back in the Big Ten as a freshman. In fact, there's this guy at Wisconsin named Jonathan Taylor. All he did this weekend was put up 223 yards on the ground, Yeah, sure, it was against Florida Atlantic, but he also led the team last week as well. So, just another building block, right? Except for I have to say this. I honestly think if you put J.K. Dobbins and Jonathan Taylor on the field at the same time, I'm pretty sure I like Jonathan Taylor's game more than I like J.K. Dobbins right now. Yeah, Jonathan Taylor hasn't shown the propensity in the pass game that maybe Dobbins has, but give me Taylor's vision. Give me his power after that vision. And then most importantly, give me his elusiveness. I love the game that JT, as I like to call him, or Jay Taylor, puts together. I think he's the whole package. I think he blocks well. He does a lot of the little things outside of it. And as a true freshman, to come into Wisconsin's offense, where you've got some established players like Bradrick Shaw and Chris James, and become the star right out the gate, yeah, for me, guess what? We were wondering where the star power would be outside of Saquon Barkley in the run game this season. I think you found it with both J.K. Dobbins and Jonathan Taylor. For my money, though, Jay Taylor, he might be the best of the Big Ten freshman running backs. What say you? If you want to leave us a line, do so in the comment section below. And don't forget, you can subscribe to everything we've got. Just go over to talking10.com. You can also find us on Twitter at TalkingB1G. And do not forget, hit that subscribe button you're seeing right now. Have yourself a good rest of the week. We'll be back later on this week with previews and talk all about the Big Ten Week 3. Have a good one. Stay safe and keep on living the B1G life.